Well, I have said numerous times on this channel that it does not matter how many foreign trade deals we do with the rest of the world, because it never will make up for the amount of trade and wealth that we have from being, well, had, should we, because that is the case of it, of being in the EU. Now, this is both from a historical perspective and an economical perspective. You only have to go back to what happened to the UK after the Second World War. And most Brexiteers are arguing and trying to champion a Britain and a trade policy that we have not had since Queen Victoria. They are trying to champion this trade policy that we had, mainly using gunboat diplomacy to get the ideal trade policies we wanted that would favour us. Not only that, but probably actively making good cases, which is bizarre, for them at least, to retake our original colonies and essentially exploit them, to drain them of their resources back to us, manufacture the goods in the UK, and then resell those finished goods back to those colonies, because no other country could export to our colonies unless they were at a very incredibly high tariffs, sometimes at 80 to 90%. This is how Britain became such a quote-unquote trade power. It was through essentially control of very lucrative colonies, and because we had the largest navy in the world to be able to enforce essentially what we wanted. And of course, after the Second World War, decolonization happened. All that fell apart. We tried in vain for at least a long time up until the 70s to try and get these quote trade deals established, but it just didn't work. And we are back in that exact situation. The whole reason we joined the European Union was to have a greater say not only in Europe, but to have a good trading relationships and be part of those trade deals and the economic relationships. That is why we joined in the first place. And you can argue and say, oh, but the EU's changed since then. We voted for all this stuff and went forward with it. And now we are back. We are going back to the exact same situation that the UK found itself almost after decolonisation back in the 1950s. And of course, as I always said, the more the Japan trade deal gets looked into, the worse it will become. And lo and behold, the more time that economists spend looking at the Japan trade deal, the worse it is indeed becoming. So this comes from The Independent. Liz Truss secures tariff wins with her Japan trade deal for products the UK doesn't export. So Liz Truss has been accused of misleading MPs and the public over her new Japan trade deal, because all the quote tariff wins are for goods the UK does not export to the country anyway. Just 10 out of the 9,444 products will enjoy lower taxes, exports say. A list of obscure items such as bird eggs, raw hides, fur skins, handbags, and ultra-strong spirits of at least 90% alcohol. Crucially, none of the 10 have been sold to Japan for the last 3 years, which means the gain to British exporters is exactly zero, the study finds. Yet, Ms. Truss has claimed the, quote, historic Japan trade deal has achieved strong tariff reductions on key agricultural products like pork, beef and salmon that will benefit farmers and food exporters. The reality was that the UK has been sailing into the wind through the negotiations to get back its starting point, said Professor Alan Winters, Director of the UK Trade Policy Observatory, or UKTPO, at the University of Sussex. Emily Thornberry, Labour's Shadow Trade Secretary, called on Miss Truss to be straight with Parliament and the British people about the implications of this agreement for British exporters. Liz Truss has repeatedly claimed that her deal for Japan goes, quote, far beyond the EU's agreement with Tokyo. But the more we dig into the detail on tariff rates, on projected export growth, or on UK brands, the more that claim falls apart. What a surprise. She has a bad habit of overpromising and underdelivering on trade deals and then trying to fill the gap with these misleading claims. The undermining of Miss Truss's boast about her new deal follow the ridicule heaped on the Department of International Trade for its false claims about the price of soy sauce, and we went over that before. The UK's top brand of soy sauce gets imported from the EU, so if there is no trade deal, then the price of soy sauce will increase in price. The Trade Secretary has also claimed that she achieved a, quote, cutting-edge digital and data provisions that would deliver an economic boost through the free flow of data with Japan. Today is a landmark moment for Britain. It shows that we can do as an independent trading nation, she said last month. However, the UK TPO concluded that the benefits for services are limited to some progresses and towards simplifying rules and regulatory cooperation for e-commerce and the City of London. What a surprise! While welcome, the changes were very minor in comparison with the existing deal the UK enjoyed with Japan through EU membership, which is being lost because of Brexit. In services and investment liberalisation, it is clear that Japan's commitments to the EU and the UK are almost identical, said Dr. Miniko Mayota Jakada, and a fellow at the university. She stressed that the groundwork had been laid by Brussels' greater negotiating power because if the UK had to negotiate with Japan from scratch, it would not have gained the level of market access that Japan accorded to the EU. Ms. Truss had also claimed a boost to trade with Japan of over 15.7 billion over the next 15 years. But that is in comparison with no deal and not with the EU deal. The government then acknowledged that 83% of those gains would go to Japanese exporters and only 17% to the UK's. And here we are, meant to be signing these, quote, fantastic trade deals, and yet here you are. This trade deal that we have signed is going to benefit Japan's exporters by 83%, just compared to ours of just 17. That says it all. And this is what you can expect from future trade deals, by the way. There's going to be this whole song and dance about, oh, how wonderful they are. And then we get to look into them. We get to look into the facts, and they ain't as great as they're claiming. Furthermore, the GDP boost will be a puny 0.07%, a tiny fraction of export loss between 5 and 8% from Britain leaving the EU customs union and single market. And again, it's nothing. Professor Winters said that to all interests and purposes in terms of tariffs, there is almost no difference between the UK-Japan and the EU-Japan free trade agreements. The UK government have exerted immense effort, but in terms of tariff, they've got back to exactly more or less the same of where they started from under the EU membership, he said. A Department for International Trade spokesperson said, if the UK had not signed a deal with Japan, tariffs on a huge number of products would have increased on the 1st of January, compared with World Trade Organization terms, which would be the alternative at the end of the transition period. CEPA, the Comprehensive Economic and Partnership Agreement, reduced tariffs on products such as beef, pork, and salmon, and relative to trade on WTO terms. The UK-Japan CEPA not only provides continuity of tariff treatments and protects established supply chains, it also allows UK goods to access more preferential tariffs than the EU-Japan agreement. We know it clearly doesn't, thanks to the new, more liberal rules of origin provisions around certain food and textile products. Overall, the deal is predicted to boost trade between countries by more than 15 billion and add 1.5 billion to the UK GDP in years to come, which is nothing. That is, as we said, 1.5 billion is a lot of money to you and I, but when you're talking countries' economies, that's 0.07%. That is nothing. We have companies, like we mentioned just this week, AstraZeneca, which by themselves in this country contribute about 1% to our GDP. So one company, which from a pure business rate and terms, will ultimately make the business decision to move to Europe because it makes more business sense, and yet we've done this trade deal, which apparently, quote, in favour of Brexit, which again gains us nothing compared to just AstraZeneca moving by itself. So we're already going to be experiencing huge negatives. We have said this from the very start. No matter how many trade deals the Brexiteers do and how much they claim that being outside the EU and the single market is this fantastic, wondrous thing, we will never make up for the losses that we experience from leaving the EU. So with that, please do like and share this video, because I think it's a message that desperately needs to get out there, just how bad this trade deal is, and I'd love to see, quite frankly, the Brexiteers try and explain just how, quote, wonderful this trade deal actually is. And also, if you would like to support the channel in a different way, please do consider becoming my Patreon, or there is a one-off donation link down below called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And thank you to the people that do and have supported me in that way. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.